happy National Organizing Day to all of those of you who celebrate. It's time to organize.
We're raising the roof on Organizing Day, huh?
There is nothing that delights me more than a well-organized drawer or closet or pantry. It makes my soul happy.
I'm definitely with you, trust me. But maybe that other person who lives in your house doesn't see it that way. Or just maybe you want to try something a little different. But before you go out and buy some kind of gadget or supplies or organizers, our next guest says you need to ask yourself a few things. So a mental exercise first.
There we go.
Loris Sofia Gregory is a professional organizer here today to talk on Minnesota Live. Loris, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi there.
So let's get ourselves in the right frame of mind before we run out and buy anything.
Right.
That's what you're saying. So what do we start with that?
Well, you got to have a vision for yourself. And I always say, what's your grandest, healthiest, lightest vision for yourself and your home? If you don't really have a vision, and once you start looking at things, touching things, you're like, oh, I need this, I need this. So I always say it's like driving around endless miles. You're never going to arrive. You're never going to, get it to any destination, because you just got to have that vision. And I always say, write it out, put it in front of you. Make sure that this is what I'm aiming towards. Like, how do I want to use this room or this space? How do I want to feel in it?
I kind of do that. I mean, what I find is I'll find like a picture, like in a magazine or on a website of something that like gives me peace.
Yes.
And I'll say, this is my inspiration. Now, how do I take what I currently have and kind of transform it? It sounds very similar to what you're saying.
If you really want to know, how do you want to feel in that space as well as use it? And, how does... you got to have that vision, because you will lose it quickly as soon as you start looking at things.
Have that thing to go back to.
So before you can start transforming a room, a lot of cases that means you got to declutter a room.
Yes.
So how do you start with that process?
Well, I have some questions to ask yourself. I think most people can understand like heavy and light. So think a question to ask yourself when you hold something, you look at something, does this make me feel heavier or lighter? And a lot of times the things from childhood, past relationships, past careers, kind of weighs you down, makes you feel heavier. And other, things that you really like, that you need, that you love, are going to make you feel lighter. My business name is Beautiful Necessity, so I think about you can have beautiful things, you can have necessary things. Those are two big categories.
Yeah.
But, as you go through your stuff or look at things too, just kind of keep saying, does it make me feel heavier or lighter?
Okay, so let's talk about the heavy things for a minute, because I have an example of this. I'm going through the basement and we're cleaning out the closet and of all the blankets and the linen, and we're figuring out, what has a match and what goes on the beds. And I came across a bunch of Afghans that my grandma made, and they're in plastic containers.
Okay.
And I love them because my grandmother made them and she's no longer with us. But they will never be used in our house. My family doesn't enjoy them. They want the soft, cozy things. They don't want the ones. That's a heavy item for me, but I can't seem to part with it. So what do you do with those things,
and that's
Loris?
the most challenging, kind of the sentimental items, the heirlooms, the things that have been handed down are the hardest to let go of. And I'd say that's, you can retain those things. It's like finding a nice space for them. And I usually say, too, that if you really want to honor those things and honor your ancestors, to find a space to display it if you can, rather than just a lot of things are stuffed in boxes, never look at, never know that they're there, and that's not really honoring the ancestor either. So
that's true. Good point.
But you could also, you can think about how could, if you are ready to let go of something, somebody else may enjoy that item. Or
that's true. You send it free, so this would be used in somebody else. So I like this idea is to, we teased this at the beginning of the show. You're holding on to a pair of jeans because someday I'm going to need these, or someday I'm going to fit into them again, or someday I might gain the weight back and I'm going to need them. So you're saying that's not really a healthy way to look at things.
No, and that's what I find. All of us have what I call self-sabotaging beliefs, and it's a way, our minds can think of any reason to hold on to something and not to let go. I mean, for some reason, that's the hardest thing that we have, is to release and or surrender things. So, it's always the some days, and a lot of times people say, well, it's going to be worth money. I need to hold on to it. Or another common thing is, as soon as I let go of it, I'm going to need it. But it's just all things that we make up in our heads. So I say, you can make up letting go of it.
Can I follow up with that on the idea of that? Because both of those things are either you're living in the past or you're trying to plan for something that's in the future, and you think, as far as getting in the right headspace, that's not really the right space to be in, right?
No, and that's where you make a good point that you can only live in the present. You know, we tend to drag our past with us. You know, we don't want to let go of our past, or we tend to anticipate, you know, future, and a lot of times it's more of a doomsday future than a, you know, I'm going to do fine. I have what I need. I can, you know, I can get what I need. I mean, that's what I think about stores and, you know, other places as your closets. I mean, we live in an abundance of things, so it's not like, you know, most things are, yeah, I can probably find it again if I need it.
I like the idea too, you kind of point out like having, like everything that you have has to have a place, right? And if it doesn't have a place, then maybe it's a good thing to start with, maybe considering moving this along elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of jokingly talk about, the term of unidentified resting objects, that people, you just start, you know, you don't see those anymore. You know, you don't use it, you don't need it. They're just kind of resting around your space, and you know, how can you look around and say, well, what can I get rid of? And you know, and back to, if I don't need it or use it, it's not, or if it's not beautiful to me, you know, a lot of times things bring up what I want to say, uncomfortable emotions as well. And then, you know, and that's not good either, and kind of wears on you over time, I think.
Okay, so we're just about out of time, but I wanted to ask you one final question. How do you, if you're looking around your room at home and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so cluttered, how do you tell people where to start? Where do you, is it 5 minutes every day exercise? Because looking around, if you've got a lot, it can be very overwhelming and you think, I'm never going to be able to tackle all this.
Yeah, and that's what there's a lot of different ways that you can, you know, try to get rid of a few things each day, but that's what I think, yeah, every day it's step by step as to, okay, what kind of annoys me in this room? Where am I not, you know, being efficient, or yeah, what don't I even like? I mean, that's what, we always have things that we don't like, but we just kind of, we get used to it. It's kind of, in any house, we get used to what we see, so it's just, and it's step by step. I mean, one thing I learned is always baby steps, is what can I release today?
Sure.
For sure.
And I think it's just like weight, you know, as soon as you lose a few pounds, then you're like, oh, maybe I could lose a few.
I got this.
Felt good. I feel a little lighter. I can keep going.
Loris, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, well, thanks.
Appreciate your time. Loris is teaching a class, by the way. It's a class on decluttering intimidating spaces. So kind of what I was just talking with you about. This class is going to be on May 4th in Apple Valley. There's also a session about taming your paper chaos on May 9th in Edina. Think of all that junk mail you just pile up. No, you don't do that? Okay, you're going to find out info on how you can join these on MinnesotaLive.com.
We've met, right? You've seen my desk.
You would think nobody houses lives in that desk,
I
but
know.
you live in. And you've been here how many years?
10.
We're back right after this.